Should I explain who I am? I'm the evangelist for Everyplay and Unity ads. Unlike most evangelists, I'm not technical, although I do attempt to make stuff in Unity occasionally. I'm not really competent enough to tell people to know what they're doing, but I can kind of tell you why games are built in certain ways. The reason I can do that is because I've spent a lot of time working in games, about 17 years. I was home architect on PlayStation Home, if anyone's heard of that. Sadly, it's no longer with us. They've switched it off on the 1st of April. I'm trying to work out where the joke is, but anyway. I'm also, I've done a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm so old that I remember dial-up modems and running an online gaming service called Wireplay. But I'm probably better known for my time at 3, back in the days where operators and Java games were king on phones, I was running the most successful operator in Europe for mobile games at the time. So there's a lot of people out there who still know me from those days. I also write books. I wrote a book on games in the service. Anyway, I'm going to try and prove to you that we don't have to be evil. We can make money in ways that make players feel good. In fact, what I want to try and do is remind us that actually, how many game designers in the room? Designers, anyone? Yeah, okay. And the rest of you are developers, coders? Yeah, no? Okay, yeah. But you want to make some money, I'm assuming. At least enough money to be able to make the next game. That's how I consider success. Making the next game is, to me, a success. So I want to find a way to do that without upsetting players. And obviously, because I'm working on ads, and this is an ads talk, we will talk a lot about ads. But mostly, I'm going to tell you why I don't like certain type of ads. Banners. Anyone like banners? No, are you the same guy that I had last? No. You're the second person I've had, ever. I don't like banners. Oh, okay, sorry. Anyone who likes banners? Anyone? I actually had someone in Ottawa tell me that they liked banner ads. Anyway, the reason I don't like banner ads is actually purely technical. Around 40% of banner ad clicks are either fraudulent or accidental. But my real problem with them is, look at all that lovely real estate where I could be doing gameplay. That's why I don't like them. Anyway, this is a very, very old image. I pull it out because it's one of the few places where it's just so blatantly obvious what I'm trying to get across. Point where the banner ads are that I look at. Can you see what the banner ad I looked at there? This is a heat map, obviously. The red is where I look. Can anyone see any red on the banner ad? I can't. So what happens there is obviously we're human beings. We've been evolutionarily designed to look out for patterns. That's why we play games, because we're looking for patterns that we can exploit, and we feel good about it when we do that. If I see this area of the screen that's always going to be something I'm not interested in, guess what I do? Stop looking at it. Exactly. So why would you do that? Why would you take up real estate that no one's going to look at? Anyone like interstitials? Anyone? They're not terrible. There are places where they're really useful. I will talk about it later, but this whole idea, we all know about the idea of frustration and relief, and a sort of pendulum swing between that kind of two states of emotion. Interstitials are actually quite useful when you need a break. When you've been experiencing this kind of massively intense game and then you need to stop. The best way of me describing this intensity is nothing to do with ads. It's just a game I really like and I really need the break. Anyone played Alien Isolation? It's incredible. But it's so scary, I would actually pay to have ads in front of me or something like that to stop me having to worry about that alien coming at me. Okay, I'm joking about, but the idea that hopefully it gets across that idea that the emotional reaction we have in games is cyclical. If we understand where in the process of our game we're going to put an ad because it's appropriate for us to be able to monetize our game, we've made a lot of effort to make something. There's an audience out there who may or may not pay. Some stats will say 3%, some will say less. So what about the others who are really loving our game, genuinely loving our game? How do we do that? Well, the problem is with the interstitial, the reason why I don't like it so much is, ever had that moment where you launch a game and it immediately shows you an interstitial? Did you feel lost? Did you remember which game you were in? Yeah, I found it was a bit, oh my God, and it's scary. And it was one game where I genuinely couldn't remember whether I was in the game of the ad or the game I'd forgotten. But then again, I do download lots of games because it's part of my job. This is a slightly more comfortable way to do an interstitial, I think, but he's still blocking me from getting to the thing I wanted in the first place. Does it feel good to you if you can't get to the game that you invested in? So, offer walls, anyone like offer walls? They pay out quite well, but I don't like the process I have to go to fulfill the offer in order to then get the reward I asked for. And it's all paid out on the basis of me going and getting the thing rather than staying and enjoying the game. So as a designer, I find that a little bit problematic. So I loved it when these guys came out. I presume everyone's played Crossy Road? Anyone not played Crossy Road? Hand up if you've not played Crossy Road. Get out. No, I'm joking. Don't get out. It's too late for me to say that joke. It is genuinely good. It is genuinely a great game. And the reason I think it's a great game is because they respect players. Think about that. So here's a game that's financed on in-app purchase and ads, and yet their core principle is they're respecting players. Now, here's another example, and I'm going to show you a set of implementations of video ads. Now, this is a bit dangerous because sometimes this works and sometimes this doesn't. So if it doesn't work in the PowerPoint, I'm using PowerPoint, please forgive me. If it doesn't work in the PowerPoint, I'll switch out and go and play the video file on VLC, which is more likely to work. So let's see if we can see this one. So this is, anyone recognize this? Angry Birds Transformers, anyone? Great game. So this is what happens at the end of Angry Birds Transformers. So they're running away, and they're firing at the to blow up the pigs, and they get to the what is that thing? A shuttle? It's another transformer anyway. So this is the end point. I've got my score. It's going to tell me how much I've made. Oh look, hey, wow, I've got 30 pigs, and I've got 344 gold coins. But now I've decided to click the button that says video ads to double my score. Well, not my score, my coins. It's a coin doubler. Coin doubler is one of those sort of really easy things that lots of people really understand. It's a nice leap, so we can compare how I've done with other people, and I can see immediately whether they've got a coin doubler or not. So I've watched the ad. I've hopefully enjoyed seeing something new, and then I've got my reward. Fantastic. Nice and easy. So there is a question we got to ask ourselves when we do things like that, and we're going to give people kind of benefits in a game. Are we going to create this scenario people famously get scared about, pay to win? Anyone believe there's such a thing as pay to win, by the way? Is there such a thing as pay to win? You think there's something? Anyone else? No, there's no such thing. It's called broken games. So I'm again joking about, but it's true. If you think about it, if your game is broken because the assets that you sell people make the game unbeatable other than having those things, you have not made a game. You've made something which is about squeezing cash only. I don't think that's a good game, do you? I mean, the trouble is, when I use examples, you end up confusing people because there's some great games that have things that you buy that give you benefits. You know, in fact, there's a great piece of psychology research done in game design looking at why people spend money on in-app purchase. But you don't spend money because we're happy or jolly. Oh, isn't it fantastic? I love the graphics. That's not why we spend money. We spend money because we expect future value. We have an expectation, a built-in expectation, that whatever I'm spending my money on is going to give me a benefit in some form. That can be social. Look at me. I have the PlayStation Home Gold Suit, which at the time was the most expensive item. People bought it in, hundreds of thousands of people bought this thing just because it had money coming out the pockets and it showed off that they'd spent money. Seriously. They had moments where people would gang up to try and be in a space that only had people in gold suits. I mean, that's kind of the power that social capital, like we call it social capital, this value that we appreciate when you see things that other people have gone and bought. It's a beautiful thing. Anyone who's cynical about it, we'll have that conversation later. I'm happy to have a long, detailed conversation about the pros and cons of well-managed social capital. But the point is, we have a value, whether it's in gameplay, or entertainment, or even performance. But we have to design that so it still sustains good gameplay. I did talk about interstitials, and this is one of the first ones I know won't work. So I'm going to switch over to, I think it's that one. Let's see if this works. So this is from Dumb Ways. Oh, hang on, you're not getting that. Right, let me see how I can get that across without. Right, so let's try to replay. So if you see Dumb Ways to Die, this is Dumb Ways to Die. You're kind of trying to do these little mini games that kind of keep you in the experience, you kind of stay alive as long as possible, and then you die. Now, what Dumb Ways to Die does is you can replay the setting that you've done over and over and again, but when you go back to the main menu, it gives you an interstitial. So you can't, you're going to see it regardless. You're not choosing to see it at this case. But it has made you sort of, oh, hang on, this is in the relax mode. This is in the relief mode. So, and then you can skip it. That's really important. If you do choose to do interstitials, again, it's not my favorite form, choose to give the player a chance to skip it. That's quite important. Anyway, so let's go back to slides, he says. Let's get rid of that lovely window there. So I'll try and get rid of that window. There we go. So we talked about this idea of the cycles and frustration relief. And I'm going to run through this quite fast now because I don't know how much time we've got left and I don't want to leave you too far away from getting your beers. Retry, anyone seen Retry from Robio? Has a really nice mechanic in it. Basically what you're doing is you're constantly trying to move your plane, but you have these save points which are all the way through the game. You can either use in-game currency to save that point, or you can watch a video ad. I don't know if it will let me see that. No, it's not going to let me see that. Such is life. So if you think about it, we're going to give people rewards, whether it's actually kind of in-game currency, or whether it's a hat, or a sword, or a save point, or a new life, the ability to continue playing this thing. There's a lot of value that we're giving to people through giving them the choice to watch an ad. You have to be a bit careful about what you offer people. What we found in general is, think about the value of about 0.5 cent to about 2 cents in terms of what you're going to give people. And it can be different at different life stages of the player. It is important to give value. Because if you think about it, what we want to do is we want to create a reason to watch a video ad that gives you something you appreciate, that you enjoy, that adds to the game, gives you value in the game, but we don't want to undermine our ability to sell you something if you're willing to pay for it either. So we have to be careful about what we're offering so we don't undermine the whole game's principles. And one of the games I think does this brilliantly, as we said earlier, is Crossy Road. And I'll try and explain why I think it does it so well. He says, it was working earlier. Honestly, this was working. All right, well, so we'll skip on it. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let me try to go to the video player, and I will open that out. So we've seen, this is Crossy Roads, if you haven't seen it before. Crossy Roads is a beautiful experience like Frogger. We're going to jump our way through, avoiding the cars or jumping on the logs. Fantastic experience. The joy of it, though, comes with the characters. I mean, it's a genuinely exciting, enjoyable gameplay in its own right. But when I use one of the special characters, when I play through the game, I'm going to watch a video in order to get more coins. The coins get used on a gacha machine deliberately. It's a classic Japanese style look in this sort of 8-bit style graphics. And the nice thing about it is you get a random character. One of my favorites was this one. Yes, it's an emo goose. Why is this so good? Because when you play with the emo goose, the whole scene of the game turns into rain and miserable, depressing scene. I love it. I genuinely love it. Now, I actually bought the emo goose because someone had happened to tell me that how good it was, and I did choose to pay for it. But that was the point. When I was playing and I had these coins and I got these random drops, because you get random drops anyway, and you accelerate how frequently you get the random characters by watching video ads, and you don't always get the opportunity to get the extra coins. You're actually waiting for that chance to click that button because you want the extra characters. The character I got was a celebrity. Okay, as you can see, I'm not really a Hello magazine sort of celebrity following kind of Paris Hilton type. However, with the celebrity, as you move along, a paparazzi pops up and takes a photo of you. And when you hit a car, a puff of money appears. And that's, again, just joyful. It's just silly things. And what happens when you get these random ones, it suddenly makes everything you might want to buy much more attractive. And the reason is your uncertainty about what it is you might get is managed. It's helped. Oh, these characters are good. These characters are actually valuable. These characters make my game more enjoyable. So no wonder you start looking forward to getting the ads, because you can get the random ones. And then when you see these others that are out there, and another one I recommend is the Frankenstein. When you get the Frankenstein, it all turns into a black and white movie with occasional flashes of yellow lightning. Again, nothing to do with the gameplay, and yet it's absolutely joyful. So what I want you to take away from this is, if you're going to make a game and you want to monetize it, you've got two choices. You can follow what everyone else is doing, or you can look at what the guys like, people like Crossy, people like the Angry Birds guys. With so many more I could talk about, but the guys who've tried to focus on the value to the player. It's not about how much money you can get out, although we want you to get a lot of money out of it. It's about focusing on the value you give to your player. It's about respecting them. It's about making them feel good. And the funny thing is, when you pursue that, and again, I'm not going to play this video for lots of reasons, as we said. If you saw the keynote earlier, you probably saw this quote from Yusi. This was from the guys at Seriously. They saw an increase in session length and an increase in daily session count with no decrease in user retention. There's actually been other evidence which looks at people's willingness to spend in-app purchases once they've been using video ads, and there seems to be a correlation. There's no proof yet whether there's causality. I don't want to give you false information, but there seems to be a connection between people's willingness to stay playing the game and start spending money in the game when the in-app purchases are designed well, to go well and complement video ads. Video ads that people have chosen, opted in to use. And when I say a million, I was actually lying to you. Crossy Road made 3 million, obviously, in 100 days from us, just on their iOS, on Unity Ads alone. So this is stuff that we know works. We've seen lots of successes on lots of games. And the key premise, I think, is at the heart of everything we're doing in Unity Ads anyway, is putting the players first. Because it's only that way, only by delivering value to players, that we will see the benefits in our bottom line. I hope that was useful. I hope it wasn't too short or too fast. But I'm absolutely happy to talk about anything to do with Unity Ads or even EveryPlay or any amount of... I put a blog post up about how to make better in-app purchases recently on the Unity blog, so you can talk about that if anyone wants to as well. So any thoughts or questions, please? Definitely, yeah. I'll try and repeat the question back so that the... I think there's a microphone coming, actually. Great, thank you.
You briefly mentioned one caveat, which is to try to avoid inflation.
Yes.
But could you elaborate on that? Give an example of what's wrong.
So it's an interesting area, and I didn't go into too much detail because it can get confusing, but anytime you have any effect on your game economy, you just got to be careful of the sources and the sinks. I mean, so the sources meaning where the resource or currency or goods are coming from. So if you've got things inside game or activities or missions inside the game that generate income, play in-game currency in this case, versus an ad, which is obviously going to generate in-game income if you choose it to pay out in-game income. You've got to think about where that income's coming from, where the sources are, and what effect that has on gameplay. So it's a balancing act you'd have to do anyway, regardless of whether you're using ads or not. But it's just that little extra factor. And what we've seen is that with those games that are using opt-in ads and in-game currency, they're thinking, well, hang on a minute, what sort of value proportionately should I give? And that sort of 0.5 cent to up to 2 cents is kind of the typical thing we're seeing working. But that's based on the games that we're currently working with and the anecdotal advice we get from them. You'll know for your game. And you'll know from the return that you're getting from people and you know, how that's affecting their willingness to keep playing and how that's affecting their willingness to spend more money. I suspect there are some examples where you would choose earlier on in the life stage to give something more valuable than later in the life stage. But that's really, again, it's an assumption based on my observation of a number of games. I could be wrong. In fact, that's one thing I will say to you, is I will be wrong, so test it for yourself, but I'll be less wrong than most people.
Thank you.
I'm not just arrogant. There is a reason for me saying that. Was there anything else, or did that answer the question?
It does answer my question. I
Great.
did have a second question, if I may.
I can hang around for a while.
Do you think it's possible to make a game where you buy things that are inherently consumable in the game without the game being evil in that respect?
Definitely. In fact, go to the blog, look at my my blog piece on that. There's actually a webinar that I did. There's a recording of that there. So essentially, you've got to think about consumables differently, though. Effectively, there's like 4 types of things we sell in any game. There's subsistence, so I need this to continue. There's shortcuts, so I will get through the game faster, or I will succeed in some goal faster because of this shortcut. Then there's strategy, so there's an alternative way of solving the game, or solving this aspect of this problem. And then the last one is social. And obviously, lots of different goods have different aspects of those things. But those 4 things can be either consumable, or they could be what I call kind of capacity. So I can have so many of these consumables, and I can up my capacity and therefore have more of those. Or it could be a generator, so I make more of the consumable. And then the last one is to go for kind of like a permanent item. The really fascinating thing about the permanent and the generators is that they have a profile in terms of their effect of the player past the first sale. So if I have a generator, I'm going to get, say, I hire an alchemist. My alchemist gives me 5 health potions a day. Think about that. It costs me 99 cents, or whatever it does, to get my alchemist. That means every day I'm going to get 5 more potions for health than any other non-paying player. So I can continue playing, and I can use a consumable good in a way that's not evil because I'm getting this permanent update, but I have to keep coming back to keep playing in order to get the value. What you're doing is you're building utility, which is this idea of my perceived value, into the ongoing play experience. Now, permanents are kind of the opposite. Permanents are like a sword of Vorpal Blade is a good example. Think about the Vorpal Blade in Alice in Wonderland. It lets you kill Jabberwockies. Fantastic, a new thing. I can now take on this new, almost impossible creature without this sword. New thing. So I aspire to get it. So I don't just want to have it. I need to get to the situation where I can unlock its potential and use it and try it and say, oh, look how great that was, and then have the opportunity to buy. Maybe not it, but something about that sort. But once I've got it, it's now part of my default game. So its value as part of the game ongoing experience is gone. So a lot of mistakes people make is they come up with lots of these ethical kind of, they think they're being ethical. I don't think they are, but they think they're being ethical because they have these permanent goods. Great, I understand that. But they haven't thought about the shadow it casts. Without some reason to come back to get the value in the game, you've just killed your market in your game. So ethics is going to come down to, are you bullying the player into buying? And let's face it, I don't think really, I can't name any game that bullies people into buying. Are they creating a schedule of reinforcement which kind of makes people feel permanently addicted? Well, actually, again, look at another webinar I did. We assume too much control. We're exposed to hundreds of different sources of coercion's too strong a word, but influences to get us to behave in a particular way. Most human beings who are not vulnerable, I mean, there's a real question about vulnerability, and we have a moral responsibility to be appropriate and respect players. But if you think about all those things together, actually, there's a much more interesting question, which is, how do we make goods that make players feel so good about what they've bought that they want to buy it again? Now, that's a much more interesting question, I think. Because it solves the first question about whether we're making an evil game or not. Because you don't carry on purchasing if you feel you're exploited. There's a phrase I use called payment fatigue. It's something I first noticed back in the days of working in an operator, and we called it bill shock at the time. So we could see people would come in to get their new phone, and they would buy any amount of games, and they'd spend a huge amount of money, and they'd look at the bill the next month, and you saw 30 days later they stopped spending anything. And we were desperate to stop bill shock happening. So we had to find ways to slow people from spending too much money in the first place so that they would carry on spending over time. This isn't new. This whole ethical dilemma thing isn't a new thing. It's just we as game designers aren't used to being the retailer. And actually that's a whole bunch of new skill sets. But do you know what? The one person in the company who I think has got the best chance of making the games that we will continue to love and feel good about isn't the data analyst, although we need them, isn't the accountant, although we need them, it's the game designer. Because if it's not consistent with the flow of the game experience, we've just broken the very reason why people come to our game. So that's why I talk about all this stuff, and that's why I'm so keen on this opt-in model, because it has to put the player's needs first to get the best value out of it. Does that answer it?
Definitely.
Cool.
Thank you.
Any more for any more? There's a question down there. We'll try and get the mic to come around to you so that the recording can pick it up.
A question. Now they show you a video in this game, but what is actually the value for this playing of the video? What do you get?
Well, as a player or as a
developer?
Oh, as a developer. So inside the game, obviously we're getting paid by the developer of or the publisher of the game that's advertising. So we get our income. Great. We're giving, if we get our timing right, we're not interfering with the flow of the game player. In fact, actually, if you listen to the Seriously guys, we're actually giving a player a new way of engaging with us commercially that's not free or paid. It's an in-between stage where they're so if you think about it, it's like 4 stages of the way we can interact with a player commercially. I can have you play my game for free, or I can put a barrier to stop you playing if you don't pay. I personally think we should let people play because we have a bigger community and a much better reach if we do. And then you can put ads in the way of their playing, and I think that creates fatigue and stops them staying playing. And if free players are valuable because they create the conditions that let paying players pay, then we don't want to block them from playing. And the whole point is that we want them to feel that they're engaged in a community that they love and the experience is worthwhile. So I don't like blocking them. So here comes video ads as an option instead that says, you can engage. You can contribute to the value of this game, but you don't have to feel the kind of anxiety of going from your wallet to handing over cash. You can do it vicariously by taking the time to watch a 15, 20-second video ad. By the way, video ads which have gameplay seem to work best in terms of conversion, just so you know. And we, as Unity ads, will provide the most likely ad of the highest value for that player. So we're going to give you something relevant. Now, I've actually, and this sounds disingenuous, it is really true. I have stopped finding games on the app stores. I now find most of the games I download through video ads. And the reason is, I get to see what they do, and I haven't had to go and search for it. Now, it's not the most, kind of ideal sole solution for finding things, don't get me wrong, but it's a really great way to find content I would never have thought of playing, and I see it, and that's great. And better still, I've got the 100 coins or the Hat of Wonder or whatever it is that the games offer me that I want, because if I didn't want it, I wouldn't have clicked the button. So as a player, I feel more engaged. As a developer, I've got a more engaged player, and I've got some income.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, how much?
Oh, how much? Sorry, I didn't realize you were asking how much. It varies. It's very varied. I find it really hard to give kind of absolute numbers because it's so dependent on your game and your suitability of your game for the ads that are being shown. But it could be anything from like I don't know, $5 eCPM to 15, or it depends. It's all based on the number of installs at the end of the day. You know, how many installs do you as a game drive? So it's actually in your interest as a developer to make this as attractive a proposition as possible, because for every 1,000 people who watch it and then go on and install, we're going to get better revenues. So I can't tell you an absolute number because it's going to depend on your game.
Okay, but it is like the player watches and I get paid.
And you get paid, yeah. But you get paid on the installs with us. And the reason for that is that it actually makes it a lot easier for the people who are going to actually put ad campaigns together to then make that call, because they know what they're going to get as a return.
I don't understand.
So you paid on the install rather than on the view. Yep. I can answer any further questions elsewhere. So I'm really sorry. Thank you very much, guys.